So, you have to take the risk sometimes. And for me, risk is okay. As long as you think about it, understand it, can deal with the consequences maybe if it doesn't go how you think it should do.
So a very warm welcome everyone to our Women in BPM series. So as we proceed on this journey of BPM, of diversity, of management, of maybe balancing responsibility, of tech and personal insights, I am really thrilled today to welcome Julia Dowding to this new episode of Women in BPM. As mentioned in earlier episodes, diversity is not a question mark anymore. Well, it shouldn't be. And what we see in the BPM area, in the BPM working space, is that we have numerous women that are acting in leading roles, that are proving a capacity to lead transformation projects, to set up operational excellence in their companies, but also to enable and change into the company. That's what we hope, is that it's paving the way for other women to take action and to be active. So welcome, Julia. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's a pleasure to join you this morning. So I'm looking forward to our chat together very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm very excited too. And just before we start, just as everyone knows who you are, would you be so kind and tell us a little bit more about your background?
Okay, so probably you can hear from my accent that I'm British. So I studied in the UK at university in the north, in Nottingham. And I did business studies as my degree, which I followed up with a postgraduate qualification in change management. I joined a large industrial company as a graduate trainee, primarily focused around logistics. Possibly you would know it, GKN and Brambles, one of the world's leading organizations in automotive, aerospace, and Brambles is very big in terms of global supply chain and logistics. So that's where I started my career. And to be brief, I fell into a very nice opportunity because the company wanted to introduce a quality management system around the ISO standards. And that's probably really where I first started to think about process, because I was really interested in how the different areas work together, how they handed over one piece of their activities to another area, and also where the customer fitted in terms of the services that we were providing. So I ended up having a lot of knowledge about the organization, and it was a very interesting project for me because it was very high profile, because it was sponsored by the management team. So I had to do a lot of presentations, etc., to them. So very early on, I was already kind of process driven, if you like, in that sense. After that, I moved to different organizations to really, most of the roles were quite change orientated, in the sense, again, they were either around quality management, business improvement, making sure customer service was at a good level within the organization, that we understood customers' needs, etc. And then I suppose I'll skip briefly to the role I was in before I moved to Luxembourg. I was working for the Mayor of London at the time in economic development, so that was quite a big departure from what I've been doing before. But again, it was still focused around the organisational transformation, because my role was head of performance, and it was introducing good project management standards, the project management office, and more importantly, looking at what the outputs and outcomes were of the organisation and measuring them, etc. So it was possible for the management team to be able to see what was really being achieved, and also having to be accountable to the public as well was an interesting aspect of that. I then moved to Luxembourg. I've been here about 10 years now, and I started with IDS Shear before it came Software AG, and it's I worked on some very interesting projects and got to know the ARIS platform, etc., in terms of the power it could bring to the transformation that organisations wanted to achieve, etc. And now I've moved with some of my former software AG colleagues to create a smaller consultancy within the Luxembourg Benelux area, and I work as the consulting director, so dealing with everything really, business development, some marketing, and also working on client projects as well. So that's a brief summary.
Oh, thank you. But that's already a very comprehensive summary. And by the way, I heard you speak very well English in Luxembourg.
Yes.
So we had this joke this morning. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, as a native speaker, you speak very well English.
Thank you.
And it's really nice to listen to you. You mentioned already, so we'll start directly into the discussion. So you mentioned transformation, you mentioned change, you mentioned communication. Do you think it makes any difference in that area to be a woman?
Ooh. There's a lot of debate, isn't there, about gender?
Yeah, of course.
And how that impacts. I suppose, I mean, I can only speak from personal experience, but certainly I think for one of my key things is with any transformational change, it's about the people. It's always about the people. And as you said, the communication is paramount. And I think sometimes some people need more support in getting to where they need to be in terms of understanding that the change is coming, how they will benefit from it, etc. That it's you know, it's part of, hopefully part of a vision of where the organisation is going. And I think women take the time to do that, take the time to have these conversations, maybe in a more gentle way than sometimes just the big corporate communication, or, you know, this is what we're doing. Anyone disagree? No, great, off we go. It's more than that. It's you have a mandate, but you have to make sure that that mandate is constantly communicated to people at all levels, and that can be a quiet conversation with somebody that's, you know, isn't part of management, but maybe, you know, they need to understand something, they're scared about something or whatever. So it's constant. I have to say, I probably learned that most when I was doing the implementation of the ISO quality management system in GKN, because some people would come, I think what I'm trying to, you need to be approachable, because some people would come to me and they would be worried. They would be worried about letting down the company, because, for example, if the auditor came in, they said something wrong, they did something wrong, that we would, you know, we would fail this compliancy check. And, you know, you have to be there, you have to listen to them, and you have to make sure that you take their concerns as genuine. And I think that for me personally, as a woman, I find that, you know, it's a natural thing that I want to do, that I feel that's important. So.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, it's it's always a big discussion. What is there is no gender specifics, and that's not what we want to say here, but indeed, being inclusive, listening to the people while you are changing and setting up standards is a key success factors of such big projects. Because one of a sudden you change their whole ways of working, you put standards in place, and of course that's where you get these change fears, and you have to deal with that, I would say.
Exactly. And I think it's an approach. Yeah. Sorry, it's also your natural approach as well, because it seems logical to you, or it seems logical to me anyway. So far, I've always been successful with it. So I think it's important to recognise that, and then, you know, why change what seems to be working? and you gain experience as well as you go along. So
that's true. Yeah. And that brings me, because you mentioned that also in your introduction, to the business process, or to the business process management wording. So what does that mean to you in the first place?
well, for me, really, it's about the hub of any organization. It's the motor, if you like. It's the thing that achieves the vision or the objectives of what that organization is trying to do. So for me, it's very important, that it's well maintained, it's working well, everything. Everyone understands what they should be doing, where they fit into the picture, etc. And also for me as well, where they touch the customer as well, because I think sometimes people feel they don't have any impact on the end output or outcome to the customer. And that's not true, because just because they're at the start of a process and maybe not directly contacting the customer, for example, then it's still what they do, can have a dramatic effect on it in terms of how the organization is perceived or the service that's delivered to the customer. So I think that's important. But yeah, it's for me, it's like an engine, yeah, and the engine needs to run efficiently, and drive in the right direction to make sure the organization achieves what it wants to achieve. So
I like that. I just wanted to ask you for an analogy on what's a process for you, or how would you explain a process to your son, for example. But obviously it would be the motor then, no? The engine that works.
Yeah, the engine that works. Each part has a role to play, and then it has to make sure that you have to make sure that it's got the right fuel coming into it, etc. And everything, all the cogs go together, they're all aligned. That's another important thing. So I think it's quite a good analogy. I mean, I don't want to sit here and give you the standard definition of a business process, because both you and people that hear this will probably will know this. So I'm not going to do that.
But that's good, because I try. I do think when we talk in our private lives, and we all have private lives, that's as important as our business lives, but everyone is asking, so what are you doing? Yeah. And then you come to, okay, what is a process? And we had so many nice analogy going over to coffee cooking or to recipes, that kind of stuff. And the engine is nice too. And I also like your views on the making clear to the people that they have a role to play to the customer. So looking at the processes from this perspective.
I think it's very important to put yourself in the customer's shoes, and I think that's kind of the focus that I have, I would say now, quite strongly, and speaking to our clients, that it's not just about internal aspects. You really need to understand that impact on the customer as well, or make sure that you think it through, for sure.
And you improve the processes for the sake of the customer satisfaction in the end. So that's a very good point. So as we entered directly into the business discussion, sorry for that, Julia, but I had to do that. I would like to start a little game with you in the middle of this interview. It's called This or That. And you just answer shortly or a little bit longer with explanation as you like. And the first one is pretty easy. It's just like risk or compliance.
Ooh, risk.
But you put standards in place.
I know. I like risk. I think I like risk in my personal life, maybe. I like to take a risk. So risk can also be good. I mean, I agree. Most of probably what I do is about mitigating risk and standards, etc. But I think I've always approached it in a very practical sense as well, because too much compliance is stifling. It doesn't achieve things necessarily. I agree there's sectors, banking, things like that you know, there's elements where there will be a heavier compliance weight, quite rightly. But, you know, I think there always has to be a balance, and sometimes you need an element of risk there, otherwise you don't have innovation, because you have to be bold sometimes, and especially nowadays it's very difficult, I think, as an organization. There's a lot of competition, and it's not just local, it's global, isn't it? So, you know, you have to take the risk sometimes, and for me, risk is okay as long as you think about it, understand it, can deal with the consequences. Maybe if it doesn't go how you think it should do, then it's okay as well.
I fully agree with that. I also say risk, so I was not saying, but and not changing or not moving is also a risk. So you have to take risk anyhow. So a more private one now. Wine or beer?
Wine.
Loved you.
I live in well, to be fair, Luxembourg wines are getting more and more, getting better all the time. And we live near the Moselle, so we also have the German wine on the other side of the river as well. And then it's literally I can be in Burgundy in a 2-hour drive, so Pouligny-Montrachet and those areas, I mean, just amazing. So that's where I say wine.
Okay, another one. School meeting or customer escalation? It's mean.
Customer escalation, probably.
Okay.
I think it's more to do with the negative of school meetings. Yeah, it's
okay. Well, balancing both, probably.
Balancing both, yeah.
Yeah. And one very last one, it's special to you because I loved our discussion at the beginning. Continental Europe or England?
Oh, gosh, that's tough.
There's
I
nothing
suppose
wrong.
I would have to be England, I think. Yeah, England.
Yeah.
That's ultimately, I think many people, I have many friends that travel and live abroad. And interestingly enough, over the past 5 years, they've all gradually come back home to England. So I'm not sure that will happen with me, but also it wouldn't surprise me.
I understand that. And I think where you come from, it's, I mean, I'm French living abroad too, then I fully understand. That's where your heart is. Yeah,
exactly.
All right, so stop with the game, and I would go to some other subjects because we didn't tackle that at the beginning. It's just, was there someone or something that inspired you during your career that influenced what you did and how you did things?
Yes, probably when I was doing the project, the senior manager, his name was Jim. He was Scottish. And
okay.
he was the director that was the sponsor of the project to implement the ISO and the standards and quality management system. So we worked very, very closely together. And I suppose he was much more experienced than me. He was probably 30 years older than me at the time. And I think to have that support from somebody like that, because he recognized that my success was his success. He wasn't, we were a team, a team together. And he wanted for me to be my best. And I think that support was really amazing, especially when you're still early in your career and you've the opportunity to do a really important project like that. And he was very inspiring. For example, sometimes the mountain of things that had to be achieved could seem overwhelming, for example. And, you know, we would sit down, we would do a plan together, we would, you know, it was really a nice experience. And, you know, to have somebody that was your supporter, really, was very nice, I have to say. So definitely him. And then another one was, I only worked, it was a lady boss. It's my only lady boss that I've ever had, Sarah Ibanja. So she was my boss when I was working at the London Economic Development Organisation, and she was just larger than life. It was my first experience of a female boss, but she was really a team player. She had a vast amount of experience. She shared that. She was willing to share that. She listened to me, she listened to my ideas, she supported me. And again, I mean, it's the similar things I've just described really as to Jim as well, but it's, yeah, you know, sometimes you find these people, and I think also just genuinely you get on together as well. There's always that aspect, which is important. So yeah, I would say that those are the two people that stick out in my mind. And what did they do for me? They built my confidence, you know, and I think that's the key thing, that it allows you to go forward and trust yourself, that you know what you're doing is the right thing, or is the sensible approach, is, you know, is based on your experience and what you know is likely to be the outcome of doing that. So yeah, that confidence is very important.
So what I hear from that is that really people, humanity, that kind of thing are driving you and motivating you throughout.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I like, for me, it's people that are dedicated is important for me. People that have a passion is important for me. Loyalty is important to me. Team approach is important to me. And yeah, kind of the compassion element as well, I think is important. And all these things are, you know, really strong things, you know, because the benefits of that they bring, you know, you don't always have to be what's the word for it, very vocal or come across as being very firm or overly assertive to achieve things. You know, the strength of being compassionate and listening to people is equally as strong, and I think that's not always recognized.
We could argue that's something you find with many females, but of course not only. No, but I like this. Looking at the other side of the coin is, what would you say now in your roles, or what you see around you? What do you see as main challenges for female leaders?
I think one of the biggest things is not to be who you are not. Embrace your natural leadership style, I think, is the first thing. I see some people that are adapting to what they think is leadership or a leadership style, and it doesn't work because they're not comfortable in it. You can see, and you know, if I can see, then other people can see as well. So I think that's important. And I think as well, not to be afraid to how do I say this? Not to be afraid to be seen to be good at listening, being empathetic. You know, these are tools in your box that can be used in different contextual situations depending on what's happening. And I think you should recognize which, what you need to use when, depending on the situation. And sometimes you will have to be more direct and you will have to be more firm and assertive, and that's okay, even if it might not be your natural thing, but you have to recognize that at certain times that has to be the case, and that's fine too. But don't go down the track of thinking, oh, I have to appear strong, I have to appear really assertive and really decisive decision maker, etc. all the time. It's, for me, it's not necessarily the right thing. Do you know what it's what I see a lot on LinkedIn, and I don't know where it's come from. And hopefully it's when people keep doing this sort of picture with their arms, and I think I find a lot of women are doing it as well, like this, and I just think for me, you're trying to be something or trying to communicate, I'm with the guys, I'm strong or whatever, and I think they need to get away from this. I think we need to promote or make sure that all type of leadership styles are promoted, because they're all, they all have their positive contributions to make, and you don't want, if you don't have different leadership styles in your top management team, then you're not really going to be the best that you are. It needs to be a mix as well. I think
it's all about being yourself, basically.
I think, yeah, for me, because it's in one sense it's the most comfortable place to be. So if you're more comfortable about it, then you will come across as more sincere about what you're saying, more credible. That was the word I was looking for. More credible about what you're saying, because you're not trying to act. That's it. Don't act as what you think a leader should be, or what act as you know inside yourself and based on your experiences to date, and trust your gut instinct. I would say that's one thing
I love that. Would that be the advice that you would give to your younger you? Be yourself, trust yourself.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I've never really had much of a problem with that. I don't think I've not. I've always probably been pretty clear about what I want to do, what I don't want to do. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. But yeah, definitely trust yourself, because I think that's important. Then I mean, it shows that you have confidence in yourself and your decisions, and that's not just in business, it's also in your life as well. It's can be helpful to make sure that you believe in what you're doing, really, and then hopefully in most cases you'll achieve it. May take longer, may involve a lot of hard work, may involve some tears, but hopefully it'll turn out okay.
I think if you believe in the things, you achieve them at some point. Wow, thanks for all these insights, Julia. I would have a last question for you before we go to the conclusion. Is really it can be private or business, but do you have any plans or any ideas? What is the next big thing that everyone is going to talk about?
Okay,
it's a big one, I know.
It's a big one, yeah. If I really knew, I would probably keep it quiet. I think for me, looking currently where the world is, humanity is, it's really about coming together to solve some really big issues. Clearly climate change. We've got the war now on our doorstep in Ukraine. You know, so there's still, you kind of think you're moving forward as a human race one step, but then you seem to go back 10 steps at the moment. But for me, what's the next big thing? So for me, it's really about, I don't know if I could say this, but you can still link it to process, in the sense that it's kind of like everyone needs to be on the same page to achieve certain things around, you know, the sustainability of food sources, of water, you know, and security of that as well. I think that will be a big thing going forward, because I think it's very easy for us to take for granted the fact we, you know, in the countries that we live in, we have clean water, we turn the tap on. Climate change is changing that, you know, and we need to be aware of that. Food security, you know, now the war in Ukraine, you can already see that impact that it's had. So I think kind of looking at global processes, if you like, or processes without borders, you know, really the bigger picture somehow, and the impacts of things, because now we're not unaffected by these things, you know, we're all affected by these things. So I think having some sort of insight there and operate, I mean, I don't know, the world PLC, I mean, and that sounds a bit strange, but you know, but these things are all connected, you know, and I think it's important that somehow we move forward with that.
Thanks a lot. Love this, also very personal insights, and as you said, it's all connected, also business and our private life. So fully agree on that. And if I just go back to our discussion, it was basically all about, you know, humility, interconnectedness, people being human, be yourself, and I think that's very insightful, and I think this is that's the kind of discussion I love to have in this Women in BPM series. So thanks for that, Julia.
Thank you.
So to everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed this session today. I hope you enjoy all the insights and ideas that Julia shared with us today. I did. Thank you. And please follow us on YouTube, follow us on LinkedIn. Make sure to watch the next episode, and we see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.